Hello and welcome to the SCOUTCAST. It's been another action-packed set of fixtures over the weekend and indeed Monday. Well, if you're a Wolves fan, that is. Can the excitement continue into game week 6? My name is Joe.
My name's Az.
My name is Lee.
Welcome everyone. Az, what's coming up in the show?
Well, we've got some interesting strategy ideas from the community to consider because we can't have everyone that's playing well, but even though we want to. We've got Liverpool's defence to consider. Now they're missing Van Dijk, which I'm sure Lee's got a few things to say about that. Villa have the form and the fixtures, so there's loads of questions about them too. And then we've also got the next 4 fixtures to consider. Lee's turn to pick a differential. Who did you pick last week, Joe?
It was a player that didn't play.
Van Aanholt,
obviously.
right.
Obviously,
Yeah,
I've got this knack of picking players that don't actually set foot on the pitch.
Yeah.
I'll be right every time, Joe. Come on.
Oh, ever.
So Lee, all you need to do is pick a player who gets 1 point, and you pretty much beat Joe and I.
I've got a good one this week. I've got a good one
with that. We've got our transfer and captaincy plans to talk about. We've got Rough with a Smooth coming, which is very different to the last week's. And first of all, we're going to look back on a good game week for all of us, I think, which is, the first time it's happened this season.
Yes, indeed.
Hey!
Yes, indeed. So, yeah, we're all very, very similar in scores. So, Lee marginally ahead. So, we'll have a look at your team. 84 points. You wildcarded into this. Kane captain and Son. You even had time to get Kilman's 12 points on the bench. That's how good it was. Rodriguez, Jimenez, Ings were the main guys out. But did it matter? No, because you did really well there. So, yeah, why did you wildcard? I've listed some of the players that you took out. They were quite good, some of them.
Yeah.
But that strikes me as odd to take some of those players out on a wildcard. But, yeah. Done well. So
I had such a good feeling for Max Kilman. I was like, I have to wildcard. It just has to happen. To be honest with you, I benched him. That won't be happening next week. To be honest, Joe, when I hit the button, it felt really right. I thought I've got Kane and Son now because I really fancied Spurs. I really like the look of Grealish because we'd just come off the back of that 7-2 battering for Liverpool at Anfield. So not Anfield, at Villa Park. So. Maybe there was some emotion, maybe there was some knee-jerking going on there potentially. But I look back at my score and I think, well, I'm pretty happy that I did. And I look at my team now and think, well, apart from 1 or 2, I did have a really last-minute wobble on Pulisic. I fancied him all week, and then I thought, actually, Rodriguez maybe, and I think Rodriguez got 4 this week rather than Pulisic's 2. So kind of much of muchness. But there's enough about Chelsea and enough about Pulisic to suggest that he might be a decent pick. So. Yeah, 84, one of the better wildcards I've played in my FPL life, if you like. So I'm pretty happy with it.
The thing I like about it is the strategy has changed, obviously, because you've moved some of those funds from a variety of players and you've sort of maxed up on Spurs there and you've spent that cash there and still kept Salah and still kept a Liverpool defence. So that's one of the topics we're going to come on to, really, about strategy for this season and how we might have to rethink what we're doing. And it sounds like you already have, and it's certainly something I'm looking at. Az, you're up next. Let's have a look here. Now, you also wildcarded into this, as many people will know who watch you on FPL Black Box. You very publicly, and dare I say very drunkenly, appeared for about 2 hours
How dare you?
That's fair.
While you explained all your initial thoughts about Chelsea having a good game against Southampton's high line, and Mark tried to persuade you to have all his players instead, which is what happens on a wild card when you get advice. Everyone says, hey, why don't you consider these players I've got in instead? But anyway, you did ever so well. 80 points. What a thing to wildcard into. Alexander-Arnold, Semedo, Lamptey, Salah, Son, Pulisic, Grealish, and Werner. Very good that you got him back in.
Very nice.
Calvert-Lewin and Mbappe, and Martinez as well. So that Martinez, he's the goalkeeper to get at the moment. So people will have seen you talk about your wildcard decision. But why did you decide to wildcard just at the last minute? And was it just sort of to correct errors during the week?
Well, it's definitely one of my weirder wildcards because I took the hit early, sort of just after the last game weeks had gone, because Werner was dropping in price, Calvert-Lewin was going up. I wanted Mopay, who's going up, and Davis was going down. So I took the -4 straight away. It immediately got me about zero point 0.4, saved me about 0.4, 0.5 team value. So I thought, okay, that's a good start. So, if something else happens, I can react to it. And then obviously De Bruyne, the injury came through, and I was like, nah, it'll be all right. He'll play in that game, be fine. And then when Pep said he's definitely out, I straight away did KDB to Son. And I was thinking, wow, I'm on a -8 now. My rank's like 2.8 million. And there's still, I like quite a few of my players, but there's still players who I don't really want going forward. And I thought, realistically, I think now is the time to wildcard, because it allows me to actually get a bit ahead of the curve rather than constantly being chasing and getting rid of players that I didn't want.
Yeah.
But the funny thing was, getting Werner back, because I'd sold him for the hit.
I love it.
I'd sold him for the hit, but it wasn't a I didn't want to sell him. The only reason I sold him was because I really felt like I had to move for Calvert-Lewin before his price just got completely ridiculous. So I kind of knew that was gonna hurt. Well, I did know. I was adamant that Werner was going to score in that game. So when I had the opportunity to bring him back, and talking about it on Black Box, and I was talking again and again about Southampton and their defensive line, I thought, look, I've got to just back myself with this and bring him in.
It shows your original idea about Werner. And I guess it just shows about, in this current climate, this was injury related, not necessarily COVID related, but making early transfers, especially in an international break, just don't do it. and it's like, I think price rises are getting to a lot of people, because it's obviously really hectic at this early stage of the season. And I'm going to have a similar issue this week. It's going to be tight for any transfers I want to make, and I might be priced out of it. But I think it's got to be so worthwhile waiting until Friday. But I think sometimes a wild card can be. I'm not saying lucky, as in, because these are good decisions you made, but it's just the way circumstances carry out. And I've done that before. In the past, I've done a wild card where I've sort of made an early transfer, and then I've made another hit, and then by the time you're looking at 12, it's I'm going to wild card this, just clear up whatever mess I've made.
I think I did. One of the reasons I did the early transfers was because I knew I had the wild card there in case I needed it. And really, I don't regret those early transfers, because it got to 0.5, like 0.5 team value just from 2 early moves. I think, out of the options of either saving, taking the -8, or wildcarding, I still think I still would have preferred to take the -8 than have waited originally. So I think the early transfers in this case were definitely the right move. But I think it was quite an extreme example of literally all the players that I wanted going up and all the players I wanted rid of. Well, not so much Werner, but I had to
What
do
happened
it.
to Havertz, Az? Because you were going to captain Havertz, weren't you? And then he's not even in your team now.
Yeah, Havertz was going to be captain. Yeah, I went on the FPL show last week and was kind of bigging him up. But he was always a kind of, I didn't really know who else to captain type thing, and it was more of a kind of punt. So as soon as I had the ability to get Son in, I said on here last week and on Black Box and on the show that Son would be the number one captain pick that I'd go for. And then it's Pulisic I want long term. So Havertz, the idea of Havertz was always as a placeholder for Pulisic. It was that was always the strategy. I wanted that 8.5 million Chelsea mid so that I could make the switch to Pulisic when I felt it was time. And ideally, I would have liked to have waited a couple of weeks for Pulisic to not be playing as a right back for some reason.
What's that about?
Yeah, and for Ziyech to be in. And
he was just playing on the right wing, and he was. I thought he had chances and he had shots. They just weren't of high quality. He was sort of playing where Werner should have been. Really, Werner was more to the left and coming central, and that's where Pulisic should be, really. So I don't know. I've got Pulisic.
It was a weird one, wasn't it? I think Mount played left, didn't he?
Mount played left,
It's like Lampard's doing everything he can to squeeze Mason Mount into this team somewhere.
Anywhere he was. But I noticed with Werner, I think, was it his first goal as well? He was coming in from the left still. Mount was on the left, but Werner central, but he was to the left coming in centrally. And I don't know, it just seemed, it's going to be interesting when Ziyech is back. And fully, and I want to see where Pulisic is going to go, and whether Lampard can actually just bench Mason Mount for blooming once, so that all the Chelsea players that we actually want can play where they actually should play. Because ideally, what you want is Pulisic left, Werner central, Havertz supporting him, and then Ziyech on the right. That's what you want, isn't it? I mean,
that will happen next week. I'm pretty confident that will happen.
Well, that's what I thought I was going to get when I got Pulisic in. So I'll come to my team. So similar again. I took a -4 for this. So I wildcarded the week before. I was all set to sort of keep and just sort of not do anything. I always had at the back of my mind I wanted to have a KDB and Sterling double up. I really wanted Man City for those two matches. And KDB was injured. So like we have to do in this game, we've got to adapt. Suddenly my plan had gone. So I know Kane stats. I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. I was seeing KDB stats and Kane of old stats. And I thought, I've got to get him in. And I wanted him in, so I could have done a more sort of sensible but more boring move of just KDB to Son. There we go. But I really wanted Kane, and I was taken with that Southampton Highline Chelsea argument, and I thought Pulisic, give him a go. So Pulisic was sort of my enabler, weirdly. I thought I'd give him a chance, and Kane was the main man there. So yeah, my team is Martinez, Alexander-Arnold, Robertson, Lamptey, Souček, Barnes, Pulisic and Sterling, so quite differential midfield. And up front, Calvert-Lewin, Kane captain, and Jimenez.
Big omission there, Joe. Big omission.
I know. We'll talk about
Where's
that later.
Salah?
Where is he? Ooh. But Sterling, who is cheaper, has matched Salah the last two game weeks. So I haven't lost out. In fact, I've gained because, as I said last week, I wouldn't have captained Salah, that particular fixture. I would have captained Sterling. Same would have gone for last week, really. I would have captained him. I thought Sterling was a good captaincy option. And we did have a couple of people in the live chat saying, is the lack of Man City assets in some of these wildcard teams worrying? Well, not for me, because I've got Sterling. And how do you get Salah in? Now, it was going to be one of KDB or Sterling, but now I've only got Sterling left, and I want to keep him. I think he's a really good differential, and he's not in a lot of teams. Everyone's piling in for Liverpool and Spurs, and a bit of Fernandes at Manchester United, but Man City are just, they're not there anymore. People are.
I think that goal from Jimenez was jammy as well, because I got the feeling that after the performance in that first half, up until that goal, which was a jammy goal, it wasn't in the game.
Well, that Sterling's goal wasn't jammy. Was the as well implying all my other players are jammy?
Not as well. No, it wasn't. It's not a completely lucky team, Joe. But I just Jimenez in particular.
I'm fuming with Jimenez in that game. I mean, he could have got -1. He could have got sent off, no goal.
Yeah.
So the players,
my Dallas clean sheet.
The players I removed was De Bruyne and Ings. So I was gonna, it was between Ings and Jimenez. So when Ings scored, I thought, oh God, I've made a boo-boo here. And then Jimenez actually got one more point than Ings. Yeah. But the thing was that Jimenez's goal, it was him trying to find a way around and he was moving around the Leicester defence, trying to get that shot away. He did that twice, and he did it 10 minutes before, and he got crowded out the first time. And then he did almost exactly the same move, and then he got his goal. And the fact that he did that twice, and he was allowed to, and Leeds was so quick in pressing down and breaking up the play, really quick. And that's that infamous murder ball in their training. So I wonder now, Jimenez against Newcastle, after watching Newcastle just collapse against Manchester United, I'm minded to keep Jimenez now. He could be...
Yeah, Newcastle and Palace next, right?
Yeah.
At home.
So I'm happy to keep Jimenez. So my original plan was definitely keep Jimenez for these fixtures, and I think I may stick with that. But if he's getting me 8 points a match, 7 or 8 points a match, I'll take that. If he's getting me 2 points a match, then it's goodbye Jimenez. But for now, I'm happy to keep him. Have we got any roughs with the smooth?
Well, we're doing something a bit different today, Joe.
We've got lots of smooths.
What we're doing today is the smooths, because we've had weeks and weeks of roughs.
Lovely. All positive.
And yeah,
Let's be positive. Yes,
I thought I'd bring a
definitely.
bit of positivity. And actually, there wasn't many roughs, so I couldn't really do many roughs. So I was my hand was forced a little bit. But yeah,
you can tell we've all had 80+ game weeks. Can't
Yeah,
you?
I know. Yeah.
What a happy Scoutcast.
Basically, because I'm now in control of the rough with the smooths, it just basically reflects the game week I've had. If I've had a rubbish game week, it's going to be a load of roughs.
It's your gig, Az. You do what you want.
No, it was a good week for most of the community, and I think it was one of those weeks where the logical moves paid off. So doubling up with Son, getting rid of KDB for one of the Spurs boys. You know, we had all the normal players scoring, Salah, Calvert-Lewin. There was points kind of everywhere, and they mostly seemed to be for players who were quite highly owned sort of in the community. So, yeah, it was a good week for a lot of people. So, quite a few people wildcarded for Kane. Sharky Tech, Blue Jays and Horseplay, Tom Saints, a Squishy Potato, Josh from Always Cheating, all played their wildcards to target Harry Kane and got richly rewarded for it. The Penman, he was featured as a rough last week. He took Son and Wilson out for a hit, if you remember that. Gem, when they scored billion points between them. Anyway, this week he's a smooth. So he wildcarded this week. He bought in Son, Kane, Robertson, Martinez, James, Chilwell, and got rid of players like KDB, Trent, McCarthy, Mahrez, Doherty. 30 points up on the wild card, and nice. It feels like he's in much better shape. So a good move. Brian 11, smooth with 97 points. Every attacking player returned. I mean, that is when you know you've had a good week, when it's not just coming from one or two players, when it comes from your entire front seven. So yeah, he's happy with that. He managed a rough though. He left 16 points on his bench as well. There you go. Shirtless. This was just a nice double transfer, I thought. KDB and Vinagre to Son and Konsa. 17 points. Lovely. He held Werner. He captained Salah. He had Fernandes. He had Calvert-Lewin. So a good week for him. AA334. Another 97 points. Game week rank of 54k. You'll like this one. Captained Rashford.
Ooh, nice. Very good.
It's a bit of a shame, like a differential pick like that, when so many other players like Fernandes and Son
that would have been a brave pick. That
exactly, that could have been amazing. But anyway, I mean, 97 points was enough to get him from 1.08 million to 250,000 in the world.
Wow.
So he's suddenly back in the race to win it. And one more. HMC, he specifically asked me to read this one out for him. He scored over 100, so 102. Every single player returned for him except for Grealish, amazingly, who you would have thought would have returned in that game. Goals from Kane, Son, Calvert-Lewin, Salah, Jimenez, assists from Kane, Son, Foden, Robertson, Martinez clean sheet, and he'd made some lovely transfers. He took KDB and Wood out for Grealish and Kane captain for free. And he was 4 million in the world after game week 3, and now he's 800k game week 5.
Nice. Wow, there's hope for us all. And I've got one more to add to that. Manchester United themed again. So topping the Fantasy Football Scout mini league is Marcus Jarman, who is 31st overall, if we can only dream of that. After triple captaining Bruno Fernandes.
Wow.
For a score of 126 points.
He's unlucky with Fernandes. He could have got even more points.
Well, imagine that. So you're doing well. You've triple captained Fernandes, and he misses a penalty. So what is going through your mind in that match? So you're thinking, I've messed up there, and then suddenly, last 10 minutes, there's a massive flurry of goals and assists, and maximum bonus points. So suddenly, happy days again. So yeah, well done, Marcus.
I'll tell you what, it'd be lovely to play your triple captain this early and nail it.
Well,
you haven't got to worry about it.
I know, just to know you've got double-digit points from your triple captain. I would love that.
Well, get this. Now he is top of the mini league, Fantasy Football Scout mini league. And he has used a lot of all his chips so far, so no wonder he's doing so high. So he's really gone for it. But he has overtaken Shaheen Withana. Now Shaheen only used one chip so far, is 71st overall, and when did he use his chip? Game week 1, Mo Salah. There we go, 60 points.
Beautiful.
Wow.
So exactly what you say. If you can get and nail one of your chips early on, you don't have to worry about it. I've had some awful captaincy returns. I mean, particularly Mane last year when he was injured, but also just some other ones like at the end of the double game week, you're lucky to get like 9 or 10 or something, and you think, that'll do. But yeah, I can dream.
Imagine peaking in game week 1. You want to build to a crescendo. I don't want to peak in game week 1.
Well,
Forget it.
I remember last season.
To be honest.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah. I remember last season having arguments with people on the board because people were saying it matters who you give your triple captain to, and it should go to a differential. And I'm saying, well, no, because all that matters is the points you get at the end of it. It doesn't matter if you triple captain Salah, and he's the main captain. If he gets a hat trick, you've maximised the potential for that chip pretty much. Doesn't matter if you give it to another differential down the line. It's all about the points at the end of the day. So to use it game week 1 and to get pretty much the best score you could get from that chip is the best to get. Pretty
good. Some tough decisions have to be made, and this brings us on to the first topic, really, which is really looking at. I've brought out a couple of things I saw on Twitter that piqued my interest about strategy this season, because everyone has noticed that the premiums, they can't stop scoring, the defences, they can't stop conceding, and so the feeling is that we need to get as many premiums as we can. Just having Son sometimes may not be enough if you don't captain them, especially if you don't have Kane. So if you have Kane and Son, you need to almost captain one of them. Same with Salah. You're going to need him, or do you? And then there's Mane as well. And then there's Chelsea doing well. There's Werner. And the list goes on and on. And these two posts really intrigue me here. The top one there is by FPL Ruser, who is... fans of the SCOUTCAST last year would have known him to be the swords and shields guy. He's the guy who came up with that concept of swords and shields and differentials and protecting rank and those types of things. And he is adapting to this season quite well. And his strategy is to prioritise owning captainable assets. Now that sounds like everyone should be playing that all the time anyway, but they're not. What they're doing is they're spreading budget around, which is what we were talking about earlier, what Lee was doing, and it's something I've done in the past. I was burnt years ago by having loads of my budget tied up in about 3 players, and then when they all flopped for a couple of weeks, my rank absolutely plummeted. So ever since then I've spread the love around the team, spread all the money around, but this season I don't think that tactic's working. I think the tactic that is working is getting your likes of Kane, Son, Salah, maybe a Man City midfielder as well, having a good defence and a good midfield, having money to have, like, say, Calvert-Lewin, who's not mega expensive when you in the great scheme of things, really. The other post there is from our own FPL Greyhead, who compiles the Great and the Good League, sort of analysing people's scores, those who have had a history of high ranks in the past. And he was in a conversation with myself and someone else, and he was talking about this very issue, really, about you can't really have them all, and he was saying, yeah, you can't, but what you're going to have to do is accept the high level of opportunity cost this year. So yeah, you can't have Kane and Son and Salah and Mane and a Chelsea and Werner and the good rest of the team. That can't be done. You can't have all of that. So, but what you can do is perhaps have Salah for good fixtures and then swap him to someone else. You can have, say, Kane for good fixtures and swap him to Aguero. And any one of those moves could really pay off with the captaincy. But also any of those moves is the opportunity cost, and you can miss out. And I think what he was doing in reference to, now his own experience this season, FPL Greyhead, game week 3, Vardy out, hat-trick. Game week 4, Son, he got rid of, brace. Game week 5, even blooming lower down, Adams out, double-digit score last time. So he's got a record of doing that, and what he's doing is just coming to the acceptance, that's the way it is this season. And I think once you sort of accept that mentally, that you are going to lose some points there, but in order to get a gain and moving around the form and the fixtures, which sounds like we should be doing that every year. But yeah, that's what I wanted to pose to both of you, really, to get your take on that. And just before I ask you a couple of questions, I wanted to, this other post here from the Rumour Mill on Fantasy Football Scout. He was talking about pricey picks continuing to score well. He says he's never known a season where a sensible, balanced squad structure has been more irrelevant. So the FPL teams succeeding the most are those that are the most unbalanced teams he's ever seen. They do not have a lot of money in defence. They do not have a lot of money in forward lines. They maybe have Kane, and they're just piling it into these premium assets here, and their balanced squad is awful. And this is something I'm having to adjust to, because I love having a nice balanced squad, and I don't think I can have it this year, and I'm going to have to make some sacrifices. But my 2 questions to you are: do we ignore squad balance and my precious price points and think, oh, I like an 8 million midfielder here and so on? Do we just ignore that and load up on as many premiums as we can and just go budget elsewhere? And also, the second question is, who? If you do that, who are your premiums? So come to you, Lee, first. I've written out in our notes some key names here, but leave it up to you, really. Do you think we should go for a balanced approach, or do we just steam in with as many premiums as we humanly can get in? And if so, who are those premiums for you at the moment?
Well, the last point you made there is quite an interesting one, and about who are they? And I think the point you made before about having to come to terms almost mentally with the fact that you're not going to have every single premium every week. Now, listen, I would have loved to have had Bruno, Rashford, Werner, Kane, Son, Salah, and Mane this week, but you just can't. So forget about it. And when Fernandes scored his, he got 11 points, I think, in the end this week. I think in the past, when that pool of premiums that are all performing is small, and you miss out on him, you think, oh, okay, right, well, that's gutting. But if you've not got Bruno, that means you've probably got some other premium in the midfield. As long as they're performing, then you're all right. I was kind of cool with that, and I was cool with Rashford, and I was cool with Werner, because I was just, you just cannot have them all. Now, I'm struggling to find the right premiums to put in my team, because if I look around, so many are performing. But I think having Salah is a must right now. I think having Kane is a must. If you look at the Spurs fixtures, Kane and Son together look great. If I look at the sort of general malaise at Manchester United, previous game week, forget that, because they played obviously really, really well. But before that, the stuff that's going on with Pogba, maybe I'm not dipping in there. Without a number 9, Man City haven't looked too great, but now Aguero's back. So, yeah, I'm with you in terms of making peace that you cannot have them all. It's very difficult to pick which one to have. I still like the price points strategy, though. I don't see me changing from that. I still like having the balance. I still think there's lots of great value to be had, and I think we know where that value is now versus game week 1, where we didn't really know where it was. But I think now you're looking at Martinez in goal. You're probably looking at sort of Lamptey, Kyle Walker-Peters at the back, and roughly where the 4.5s are that you want to pick. You've got the Grealishes and the James Rodriguez's in midfield for good value there too, and we know that Dominic Calvert-Lewin clearly is a must-have up front. So I think we kind of know roughly in the sort of mid-budget picks. I think we know where we are a bit more with those than we do with the premiums actually right now. But no, I'm not getting too upset about the premium scores. Yes, I'd like to have them all, but you just can't. So you've got to have a decent mix, I think.
No, I know. There's a few scores this week. So, for example, like Late Riser, who adopts this strategy most years, he hasn't got any Spurs, but he got 91 points. So it just shows you that there are so many players performing well that you can. So, I mean, I don't think Salah is essential to have, but I wouldn't mind having one of Salah or Mane. But
that's the point, isn't it? You wouldn't mind having one. It's not like you've got to have one.
But I do think Harry Kane is essential because
rubbish.
Because of the way he's performing and the fact that he is being a De Bruyne and Harry Kane of old, and he's his lowest price for 3 years, 4 years, so he is offering value there. I think that if you don't have Kane, getting Son is a very good next best thing. But I do think at the moment Kane is an essential player, because we haven't seen this in FPL for a long time. A player that's this outstanding when it comes to the stats, when it comes to the performances and the FPL returns as well. But so that's my take. But everyone else, I just think it's a free-for-all, really. I wouldn't mind Fernandes. I'm wondering if Fernandes might be better than Salah even for a couple of weeks. And everyone thinking, so I'm trying to get out of the mindset of thinking, this player I must have, or this player isn't. And, obviously I'm falling into the trap already. Harry Kane is essential, I've just said. But I guess, come to you. You haven't got Harry Kane, you've got Son, you're happy. So, yeah, what do you think? Who would be your players? And have you just got rid of having a balanced squad? Are you just going to go for as many premiums as you can?
No, and I think I disagree with almost everything you've both said, apart from what Lee said about keeping faith with the balanced approach, because I don't think anyone's essential. I think you can. I think that what was so amazing about this week was that people with the kind of the core players of Kane, Son, Salah have done well. People who have completely gone against that and they've got players like Werner and Sterling and Rashford and Fernandes have done well. And I don't think that's anything that's gonna stop. I think you can build a team with these premiums, and you don't need to worry about switching them out every week to try and catch different ones, because we've seen how much that can hurt people. I mean, this week plenty of people were caught out by Werner, getting rid of him and then seeing him haul against Southampton. So I think what you've got to identify is kind of like blocks of fixtures where you think that the premiums can work, and then maybe adapt based on that. So, one of your premium blanks one week, don't think, I need to take him out and try and get last week's points, because that player can suddenly do well again. So Son and Kane are good examples of that, because they've got strong fixtures to come. And I'm not saying for a second I don't think Kane and Son are going to keep scoring points, because I think they both are. But I think having one of them is advisable. I wouldn't describe having either of them as essential, because there's so many other options that can do well. I don't think having I'm a testament to the fact that my strategy at the start of the season was 2 4.5 defenders playing every week, load up on premium. So I had Martial, I had Werner, I had De Bruyne, and I had Salah, and it was awful. It just didn't work. It just didn't work, because if for whatever reason those premiums don't perform, you're relying on Walker Peters and Eiling or these guys to kind of bail you out of trouble. And, one of the reasons why I wanted to play the wildcard was to turn my team much more into a balanced squad. So now I've got, Son, Pulisic, Grealish. I've got Mopé, who he was absolutely dreadful against Palace, but hopefully he can learn to shoot again. But, that kind of 6.5 million striker, Antonio's got some great games coming up. You've got Wilson as well. There's plenty of options around there who aren't premium prices. So I think, if you look at the top scoring players in the game, they're not all premium picks. You've got plenty of options. You've got Rodriguez, like Lee mentioned, at 8. You've got Grealish, Zaha. You've got Bowen, who looks like he's going to hit for me. In the strikers, you've got Calvert-Lewin, Wilson, Mopé, Bamford. And in defence, you're not looking at premium defenders either. I mean, Robertson and Trent aren't even in the top 6 defenders. You've got Sace, Mings, Castagna, Creswell, Konsa, and Dean. So,
do you think patience is key then? Do you think? I mean, otherwise we're just going to be bouncing around from different premiums, probably missing points. Or what do you think? What's your feeling on patience?
I think it has to be. And I mean, a good example is Werner. So Werner this week has got Man United away. I don't think it could be a great fixture if they play like they did against Spurs, but it's not a perfect fixture. But I'm not looking at Werner and thinking, I need to move him to Kane immediately. I'm thinking, well, after United, he's then got Burnley away, Sheffield United home, and Newcastle away. 3 much better games. So I don't think we need to panic. I think premium picks might have a shorter shelf life than we might have seen before. So, for example, last year, if Salah blanked for 2 games in a row or 3 games in a row, you might be thinking to yourself, I need to get rid. You might be thinking, last season you might be thinking, I'll give him a bit longer, whatever. But I think it is going to become a lot more tempting to move players on when they don't perform. But as long as they're performing, one game blank, I'm not panicking.
No, I think 1 or 2 game blanks for Salah. I mean, given his 3-year track record, we just think, well, that's just maybe one of those things. But especially, for what I would do though is look at the underlying stats. If I saw that Salah was like getting 1 shot a game of those 2 games, then I might consider getting rid of him. But the other thing with Salah is you've got to look at Mane. And Mane is being overlooked, but also, you mentioned defence there as well, and that brings us on to the next topic really, which ties in with this really, because we're looking at a balanced squad. And one way to have a balanced squad is to have a good premium defender. But perhaps one way to not have a balanced squad is do what I've done, a Liverpool double defence. So now we don't have Van Dijk and we don't have Alisson as well. Some people are thinking, do we invest in Liverpool defence at all? But yeah, Lee, we've got some community questions on this issue. Fire away.
We do, yeah. Hot topic, isn't it, Liverpool defence after what happened at the weekend? I think it was already a hot topic actually, and I think the Van Dijk injury has just kind of accelerated it, if anything. But they are depleted, to say the least. Alisson's out. Obviously, I think we as Liverpool fans hoping that he's going to be back sooner rather than later. And I think Klopp's comments suggest that he is going to be back sooner rather than later, which is good. But obviously, Van Dijk is not going to be back potentially this season with an anterior cruciate ligament injury. So he's going to be out for many months now. So A lot of people have the Liverpool double defensive lineup. A lot of people, well, not a lot of people, but some people got the treble as well. There's some Robertson, Trent, and Van Dijk owners. So, what is the answer now with Liverpool defence? Is it 1, 2, or 3? We've had some questions from the community, as you say. So from Ginola, and if that's the real Ginola, if you're listening, David, are Robertson and Alexander-Arnold worth their price tags now Virgil van Dijk is out? And again, we've already, I think, as you pointed out, the top 5 point-scoring defenders don't include any of the Liverpool boys right now. Tommy G is going super cheap in defence the way forward, especially regarding Liverpool defenders. So a bit of a more generic point there about the fact there's been so many goals and not a lot of clean sheets, frankly. Benny Blanco says, is it time to go cheap in defence with the shocking lack of clean sheets? And Mish just says, well, what to do with those of us on double Liverpool defence? Sheffield United up next. Looks like a bad time to jump off. So, Joe, why don't I come to you? Because you are on the double Liverpool defence. So what's the plan?
Well, yeah, it comes to the point earlier about the strategy, and particularly of this season. Having a double Liverpool defence with all of these attackers and midfielders performing so well, I don't think it's viable any longer. I've got 14.5 million of my budget tied up in 2 players who aren't performing. Well, one of them is performing in Robertson, but Alexander-Arnold isn't in terms of FPL points. We've got their stats up on the screen. We can see their underlying stats are still fine. Chances created, Alexander-Arnold 9, Robertson 8. That's fine. Goal attempts, Alexander-Arnold still firing away 9. Robertson's had 4. And if you look at the crosses, being successful crosses, Alexander-Arnold still fired away 8 of them. Robertson 6. I think 6. Robertson's more eye-catching as well. And corners, Robertson's on 23 of them he's had, and Alexander-Arnold 13. The point is that I think I'm going to come off the double Liverpool defence because it's a combination of those 2 strategies. I need more balance, but I also need more premiums. And I need players that are going to get me really good returns. It's really unfortunate timing that I've come to this conclusion just when Liverpool have 2 games in which at least one of them they should be getting a clean sheet against Sheffield United. But I think that's the way I might have to go. I need to maximise those opportunities, as some of those tweets earlier were saying. And it's going to be pretty sad, but I think I'm going to ditch Alexander-Arnold. I think Robertson is cheaper. I know he's cheaper, sorry. I think he's better at the moment. He's better on the eye test. All I can go is the eye test. Robertson's much higher up. He seems to be attacking more. He seems to be playing more like a winger. Henderson seems to be moving into the space where Alexander-Arnold should be playing higher up. That could all change. Van Dijk injury could change the way it is. They could just all go absolutely crazy like Leeds and just all start attacking and play murder ball for something. But for me at the moment, I think if I want Mane or Salah, I'm going to have to get rid of Alexander-Arnold. And it comes back to the opportunity cost. And I'm fully prepared for an Alexander-Arnold goal and clean sheet. But I have Robertson. And do I think Mane or Salah is better than Alexander-Arnold? And that's the answer to my question. So that's why I would make that move. So yeah, other people might be in the same position as me. Depending on the rest of your team, but for me personally, I think it might be time to jump off.
Yeah, I think it comes back to that, accepting that Trent is going to get points, right? He's a 7.5, and last season was spectacular, so he will get you points. But
would I captain him? Would I captain Salah or Mane?
Exactly.
Oh yeah, I would.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And could you use that money better elsewhere? I think is the point. I mean, I hear what you're saying. I mean, Henderson as well was drifting out wide right and getting into those sorts of positions that we're expecting to see Trent in last game week, which was a bit of a concern. One of my key concerns is what happens with the defence that we currently got. So we're sitting here saying, all right, well, Gomez, Matip, Trent and Robertson with maybe Adrian behind isn't, you wouldn't want to go double Liverpool defence. Well, Joao Matip has not got the best injury record. Let me tell you, and I think he's a doubt for the Ajax game as well, which is coming up in midweek. Joe Gomez has had a very shaky start to the season. So if you look beyond those guys, you're talking about putting Fabinho back there potentially, but then he's not in front doing the job he's supposed to be doing, which is shielding the back 4. And you're kind of then into, we wouldn't mind having Lovren back territory, which is pretty frightening to be honest.
To be honest, he was the best defender you've ever had at Liverpool. Well, according
Well,
to
he
him.
was the best in the world, wasn't he, for a little while? But actually, I mean, you joke about it, but aerially, which is where we're going to struggle now, Lovren would have been perfect. But Az, go on, tell us your strategy then. So you're just on Trent though, right? You just got the one. What's your feeling?
Yeah, well, just quickly on the double up. I mean, I'm in kind of two minds about it, and there was two comments in the chat that caught my eye. So Mark B says if Robertson was a 7 million mid, I'd still be happy with his returns, which I think is a fair point.
I think it is. Yeah.
And also Martin Boyle says thought Robertson's heat map was Mane, and when you look at the heat map of Robertson, it is unbelievable. Like, he is playing better than I've ever seen him play.
And he's playing the same side as Mane, isn't he? So if Mane is going to score, who's going to assist him?
Exactly, and I keep thinking this is inevitably going to regress, and Robertson's going to go back and we won't get as much from him as we do Trent, and then the matches keep ticking by, and every match I'm way more impressed by Robertson than I am with Trent. I think Trent's just one free kick away from suddenly becoming essential again into everyone's team. He scores a free kick, even if he doesn't get the clean sheet, he gets 11, 12 points, and then starts picking up assists and goals again. So I'm very reluctant to sell him. The double up kind of works just because of how attacking they both are, and the clean sheets almost feel like a kind of bonus, and they were a massive bonus. They were helping them they were obviously key to them getting 200 points each last season. I don't think they're going to get that this season with Van Dijk out. I don't think they're going to get to 200. I think they're more likely to regress down to 160, 170 because they're just going to keep fewer clean sheets. Like you say with Gomez. I mean, Gomez has been so unimpressive, and I've often thought, is he just kind of good because he's alongside Van Dijk, and Van Dijk kind of brings out the best in him. It's going to be interesting to see if he can sort of prove that he is a kind of a Liverpool-worthy England international centre-back without Van Dijk there. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I think the double up's too much. I do. I think I think there's still a case for them, because you are effectively having two extra mids. But when you've got someone like Grealish, or you're looking to use that money to buy a premium asset, I think they would be the first port of call for me to be taking my money out of.
Because I mean, so for example, in my position, in order to get a Liverpool midfielder who I do think is desirable, not essential, but desirable, because they are a captainable asset, it would either be Sterling or Alexander-Arnold that makes way, just through the nature of those two moves within a hit. And I don't want to move Sterling at the moment. So you think about it, who do I want to keep? Sterling or Alexander-Arnold? It was Sterling. And going back to the original question, who do you want any premium attacker rather than Alexander-Arnold? I think I do. So it's going to be, that's a cutting the apron strings, isn't it? I'm cut adrift. I'll be like,
I think it's even just watching the games, you can see that Robertson has got even more license to go forward this season. And a lot of it comes down to how good their counterparts on those sides are at defending. So Salah is all right, he'll track back, but okay, you want him going forward, really, hence Henderson drifting that way. But Mane is unbelievably good at tracking back and defending and putting the shift in, and that just allows Robertson to go do what he wants to do. So I'm not, I agree with you. It's a very difficult pick to make. But right now, for me, I think Robbo is out eye testing Trent. He's out statting him. He's out FPL points in him as well. He is,
and the corners as well. I mean, the corners is him sharing corners with Trent is massive.
And just in because we mentioned Mane there, because this is it's all tied up. Which Liverpool assets do we get? Do we have double Liverpool defence? Do we move into attack? Those types of things. But looking at Salah and Mane, and this could be Robertson's influence here, but in terms of expected goals, Mane's is 3.69 and Salah's is 3.23. So Mane, who's played a game less, is marginally higher there. And his expected goal involvement, Salah's is only just above Mane's there. Once again, Mane's played a game less. And I just wonder, just on the eye test when I watch the games, obviously Salah looks great, but I think Mane looks really great. And I can see why Liverpool fans are absolutely mad for him. Because
I think you want one of them in your team going forward at least. And it'd be very interesting to see the mentality that Klopp now takes with this side. So pre-Van Dijk, if you go back to the beginning of the 17-18 season, or even the season before that, Liverpool were all about, we'll score one more than you. We had some bonkers scorelines. If I think back to the beginning of 17-18, I vividly remember a game where I think we drew 3-3 away at Watford, and we conceded, guess what, a 90th minute header, which is going to happen a lot now that Virgil van Dijk's not there. Aerially, we're going to be more susceptible. So I'll be interested to see whether Klopp takes an approach that is, all right, we need to protect our back four a bit more and maybe drop a bit, or whether we just let's just attack is the best form of defence. And I honestly think with the form that those two are in, Salah and Mane, I think it could be the latter. And if we do that, then obviously they become even better captaincy options than they were before.
That's what I'm thinking in the back of my mind, because I am Salah and Mane-less at the moment. And that, talking about fear and embracing the fear in the game. I'll have to embrace the fear of cutting the apron strings on Alexander-Arnold. But at the same time, I can't quite address that fear yet of going into these next two fixtures without Salah or Mane. And I'm not of the school of thought where I think, got to be Salah. Because I do think, one of them, historically over the last couple of years, whichever one I've had, apart from that time Mane got injured when I triple captained him, but apart from that, they pretty much match each other. If one of them hauls, the other one hauls. That's usual. That's the usual way.
Thing is, Joe, next couple of game weeks, you could easily go without and captain Kane, right?
Yeah, and that's
the other. Kane, it's not such a big deal.
And I'm also, we'll come to moves and captaincies later in the week. One of the things I'm seriously considering is getting Mane in, keeping Sterling, captaining Kane, and not having Salah at all. But if I get Salah in, I don't know. It's that fear again. It's that feeling of like, I've got Salah home against Sheffield United, must captain him. But I think if I might get Mane in, that decision's. But then I'll be thinking about, do you know what I'm going through? I'm going through what you're going through, as I haven't even had a drink. And I'm thinking,
get the beers out, Joe.
I need one of them, And I'm now thinking maybe I should captain Mane. And I think every time I see teams with Mane in, and then I see Mane scores or listen to the match or watch it and Mane scores, I think they know.
I think that's just being too clever.
What, getting Mane in's too clever?
Instead of Salah, yeah.
That's not clever. That's just normal.
It's not normal. I think it's trying to be different. It's trying to get in Mane over Salah to try and do something a bit different on other people, when in reality Salah is the better option.
Okay, so if they were both the same price, I would get Salah in because he's on penalties. That's fact. But they are not the same price. And if I get Salah in, I've got to get someone like Kilman in. But if I get Mane in, I can up it to a more respectable 4.5, 4.6, whatever.
Hey, nothing wrong with my boy Kilman. You leave him alone.
Well, so that's the decision I would have to come to. But I don't think it's being too clever. Being too clever is doing something like getting Marvellous Nakamba in instead of Grealish. That's too clever. But getting Mane against Salah, they're both great options, aren't they? I mean, surely. I mean, you've seen Salah.
Yeah, they're both good options. But I mean,
great.
I did three of the next four at home, and that's the thing that would swing it for me, I think, is Salah's home form. I mean, if we were 3 out of 4 away from home coming up, then all right, sometimes Salah can have an off day on the road. We haven't seen that this season, by the way. He's been pretty good on the road. Despite getting smashed at Villa Park, he got 2 goals. So, but the 3 games at home, and what are they? Sheffield United, West Ham, and Leicester. And then we've got Brighton and Man City around that. I mean, the Man City game's interesting, but of those next 5, I think Klopp is going to throw caution to the wind. I think he's going to attack those games. And 3 out of the next 4 at home is got Salah captaincy written all over it.
Do you know what my other thinking of getting rid of Alexander-Arnold is? Salah and Mane. If I wanted to get rid of Sterling at some point, Salah and Mane.
I considered it on the wild card.
Now that really appeals, and I think those that are getting Salah and Mane in, next 2 are going to be quids in. Definitely.
I tell you what you can't do though. You cannot have Salah, Mane, Kane, and Son.
No, I haven't got Son.
You can't have them all.
You can't have them all.
You can't have. Well, I do like the Salah and Mane.
Yes.
Double up.
If I had Salah and Mane, I would have to say goodbye to Raheem Sterling, and I'm not sure I want to do that. But that's the story of the season, isn't it?
If you're picking a 4.5 like bench option, or like Kilman, or going Salah Mane, I just pick Salah every time. I just think he's. The penalties isn't something you can just kind of say, if I'd have been like, it's such a big thing for Salah to have.
Do you know what the decision? I'm letting the decision go to the market. Very Thatcherite view of me. I'm letting the market decide because the price changes. There's going to be loads of them. They're all going to be odd this week. come Friday when I get the team news, I'm going to key in the certain moves of those transfers, and I may be priced out of one or two of them. And in which case I might go for Mane, and who knows? Who knows, that may be the better decision. But it will actually be the market deciding for me. So I'm at the mercy of about 7 million idiots trying to get Kilman in early and ahead of all the Champions League games. So that's what I'm facing. But there are other players. Villa. Do you want to talk about Villa? I know you've done some research on this as well.
I have. Yeah, I've actually come prepared for this one because I have just written an article for Fantasy Scout, which should be coming out tomorrow, on Villa, amazingly enough. And weirdly, we hadn't even planned this, Joe, because I didn't even know I was going to be doing this little segment on Villa. But I've got some stats. I've got my article up, so I can give you all a little sneak peek into that.
We'll go on mute, Go on. You crack on.
Yeah, I'll just lead this one, guys.
I'll just have a cup of tea.
So Villa assets. So Villa are living the glory days with options in every position. They are the only team in Europe's leagues, top leagues, to have won every game, which is incredible. I mean, who would have predicted that? They take on Leeds this week, who have now, it's been confirmed that Calvin Phillips is out for the next few weeks, which is absolutely huge for them. Bad news for them. And I know that, is it Cooper went off injured in the warm-up before the game last night as well. So they're not a good time to be playing Villa, I don't think, if they've got some injury doubts. And with Phillips out. So it's the first Premier League encounter between Villa and Leeds since 2004. Villa won 2-0 with goals from, thanks for this by the way, Joe, Juan Pablo Angel and Ronnie Johnson.
Oh, legend.
There you go. Ross Barkley scored in both his Premier League appearances for Aston Villa so far, and the last player to score in each of his 3 top flight games was Dion Dublin.
Yeah, it was his first top 3. The first
Superb.
games for Villa. First 3 top flight
first
games
3
for Villa.
Yeah. How's that? How's that?
Rolling back the years.
Yeah.
You have done some research, Haz. I'm very impressed.
No, these were from Joe. I can't take credit for these. These were from Joe. Mine will come in a bit. So that's some unique questions. So why aren't we seeing more Villa defenders like Tyrone Mings in wildcard picks? I think that's a pretty easy answer because everyone's going for Martinez. But the gaffer says, definitely want to hear you chat about Villa options. Who do you prefer out of McGinn, Barkley? He says he can't afford a Grealish. You've also got Watkins there as well. So I'll just give you a couple of things from the research that I've done today. So defensively, Aston Villa are kind of mid-table when it comes to the stats. They're above the likes of Wolves, Man United, Leeds, Leicester, but they're below teams like Man City, Everton, even Chelsea, who are posting good numbers but just having so many errors. So what is amazing with Aston Villa, though, is despite them being sort of mid-table in terms of the stats, they've conceded the least goals by far. So they've only conceded 2 goals in the first 4 games. When you look at Burnley, so Burnley are actually posting better defensive numbers but have conceded 8. So what that tells me is I think Villa are getting a little bit lucky to be conceding as few goals as they are, and Martinez is just hoovering up points, but I wouldn't be too surprised if Villa did start shipping in a couple more goals over the next few. So people considering, I mean, Martinez's price is just going up and up and up, and I still think he's the best option around that price. But once he starts hitting the 5 million mark, I don't know. Then I think you've got a decision.
Well, he's in Nick Pope territory then, isn't he? So he's got to perform, in people's minds. Because what you're dealing with, because just bring it back to what it is. FPL is a game, and so that deals with everyone's psychology and insecurities and fears and risks and rewards and all of those types of things. And as soon as he gets to 5 million, the first thing people are going to think is, new Nick Pope, even though it's a completely different goalkeeper. And then he suddenly might be worth it. And that's the thing we have to factor in. I think at the moment, people would be willing to go up to 5-2-3 for him.
Really?
I think he's got a good few moves in him yet before people will be put off. I think he can.
Based on this evidence, I wouldn't be paying more than 5 million for him. I don't think he's worth it. I think I'd still prefer to have someone like Ryan, Meslier, McCarthy and have the 0.5.
I stepped on my wildcard. I stepped off Ryan and McCarthy for the reason that they just can't keep clean sheets, whereas Villa can. And they were. Admittedly, I got Martinez, who was a little bit cheaper, but I think I would pay at the moment. I personally would pay up to 5 million.
Well, it's a strange one because Brighton and Southampton are both have better underlying defensive stats than Villa. Brighton actually have the best underlying defensive stats in the whole league. They just make too many errors. So
and Ryan's not been saving many, right?
And Ryan hasn't been saving any.
Few shots, but they're all going in, right?
Exactly. I mean, the penalty against Palace, I think, was incredibly unlucky.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, Brighton have got some better fixtures coming up now. I think the main difference with Brighton is a lot of people have got Lamptey and don't want to do the double up.
Yes.
Whereas with Villa, you have Martinez, and then you don't really care about any of their defenders. We'll come back to that.
What's the big change then, Az? What's the big change? So, yes, a really good new goalkeeper versus Pepe Reina and a whole host of different people in Villa. It must have fundamentally changed something. Is it just the John Terry effect? So they were working something over the summer, or what's fundamentally changed at Villa?
It's just smart signings. It's just they've literally strengthened every position which they needed to. Yeah. They've bought in Cash and Martinez to strengthen the defence. They bought in Barkley, which means pressures off Grealish to constantly be the one creating, and they bought in Watkins, who is an absolutely brilliant striker. So
Cash actually looks quite creative down that side, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. He does play a bit, plays deeper than Target, but he's creating more chances. So a bit like Alexander-Arnold, just sometimes drops deeper and puts the balls in. That's kind of what he does. But yeah, I mean, I don't think the stats defensively don't indicate to me that this is going to be. They're not going to keep clean sheets every game. But because I just want to mention this before we move on. But attacking numbers, I mean, attacking wise. I know we've had that absolute mauling of your boys, Lee, but attacking-wise, Villa are great. But some of the other teams which are high. So the top two teams in the league for goal attempts in the box are Liverpool and Spurs, right? Unsurprising. The next three are Leeds United, Aston Villa, West Ham.
West Ham, yeah.
It's absolutely mad. And when you look at Aston Villa, they are they're the standouts because they've got a perfect combination of lots of attempts and a high goal conversion as well. So when you look at someone like Leicester, for example, Leicester have got a 25% goal conversion and they've had half the amount of shots that Villa have had. So in a way, they've been lucky to have got the amount of goals that they've got. I mean, Brighton have had the same amount of shots as Villa and have half the goal conversion. So, Villa,
they've kind of gone from the sublime to the ridiculous, Villa, haven't they? Because that game against us was such a freak game and is throwing all the stats out at the minute a little bit. But then if you look at the game they played the other night, they were kind of a bit lukewarm until Barkley, hit a bit of a speculative shot from kind of nowhere. And it's a great goal. I don't take anything away from him. Keeper maybe should do better. But they're a bit kind of, Grealish didn't have a good game, really, the other night, in my opinion. Didn't play a fantastic game. I mean, so here's a question then, Joe. So if you couldn't afford Grealish and you had to choose between McGinn and Barkley, where would you go out?
It'd be Barkley. Barkley out of McGinn. But I don't know if I want any of them yet because I would like to see some more because essentially Villa are, I think what we saw the last match is more like Villa, a sort of okay, bit boring at times. They might score, they might not. That's sort of normal. They're not going to hammer teams 7-2 every week. They're not going to face Liverpool every week. So I look at that and I mean on paper Grealish 9 chances created, 3 shots, all inside the box. Expected goal involvement 1.17.
9 chances created is huge.
It's huge, but it's huge for his price. Definitely, it's absolutely huge. Yeah. But then
it's huge. It's huge. If De Bruyne created 9 chances in a game, you'd be saying that's a lot of chances.
This isn't in a game. This is the last two games. So it's about 4.5. Yeah. Oh God. Yeah.
That's the Liverpool game throwing it off, isn't it?
Yeah. Exactly. So this is
just a free game.
Yeah. So what I want to see is a little bit more, and that's just because I've got other issues, like for example needing a Liverpool midfielder. So I can't think. Oh, I must have Grealish. Grealish is like low. He's like way down on my list of priorities. But yeah, eventually I would like one of Grealish or Barkley. I'm tempted by an Aston Villa double up though, and I already have Steer, so that would max me out on Villa. So to get Target in as well as Martinez. So a lot of people who've wildcarded have got Martinez in, but not a lot of them have the double Villa defence. So if we think there isn't going, because these are good fixtures coming out. They've got Leeds, Southampton, Arsenal, then Brighton, West Ham, and Newcastle. These are good fixtures for clean sheet potential. And yeah, so as Az was saying about the stats, the big chances conceded the best two teams are Villa and Burnley at the moment. Both have conceded 5, but they played a match less. So out of all 5 games, about teams that have conceded 5 times, is West Ham. They've conceded 7 big chances. So I think Villa and Burnley could be a bit more like that. Could be a bit more like they've got to beat West Ham basically. West Ham are in fact the form defence, even though they've just conceded 3 to Spurs. But you look at goals conceded. So Villa have only conceded 2 there. So but Burnley 8. West Ham have conceded 7. So you can see where you think about regression, and Burnley have perhaps been unlucky, but that's because they've been without their Tarkowski and me pairing. I mean, what does all that ramble mean? I think getting a Villa double up in defence is completely reasonable. I think going without Grealish is reasonable. I think there's still a lot of assets around that 6-7 million, even higher up, going up to 8 million price range. And I'd like to see a little bit more of Villa. But long term, Villa are going to have a double game week coming out after Christmas, as Burnley will, and Manchester United, Man City. So I'm going to want probably Grealish for that. So a bit of long-term planning. But I wouldn't mind a bit of their defence as well. Maybe more. I don't know. So there's just
their
long-term.
style kind of reminds me of Leicester when they won the league. Maybe that's a silly thing to say. I don't know. But this kind of, soak it up, hit them on the counter-attack, pretty conservative play, and then, break fast. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Leicester. I'm not going to sit here and say Villa are going to win the league this season, but I'm kind of with you, Joe, in terms of they come up against these teams like Liverpool that think, all right, well, we'll play a high line and we'll take it to Villa. Maybe they've got the tools to deal with that, but then they come up against a low block team, and actually they've got to win it with a speculative shot in the 91st minute.
If I didn't have other moves, so I've got Harvey Barnes at Leicester. I'm quite happy to move him on. If I had 0.2 million in the bank, the completely right and sensible move would be Harvey Barnes to Grealish. And if I didn't have other moves I'd quite like to make, I would definitely do that. Yeah, why not? And that's partly...
You'd be doing that for a -4.
You'd be doing that for a -4. Well, I'm quite happy to do that maybe in a couple of weeks or so. I don't know. But
can I just really quickly just give you a couple of stats on Grealish, because I think this is quite... So no player in the league, no midfielder in the league has had more touches in the penalty area than Grealish over the last 4. Than Grealish. He's had more than Sterling, Mane, Salah, everyone.
Okay.
No player in the last 4 game weeks has created more chances than Grealish. Equal with Bruno Fernandes, Kevin De Bruyne, 1 more than Son. Amazingly, 2 more than Aaron Creswell.
Right, okay.
And then 1 more than Salah and Kane. I mean, look, Creswell there is just absolutely ridiculous. But look at the company he's in terms of chances created. Grealish, Fernandes, De Bruyne, Son, Kane, Salah, Rodriguez. They're all up there. I mean, we can say that Liverpool game is a complete anomaly. But what is amazing is that they're winning games around that as well. They haven't just come into that and just won that game and they're drawing and losing other games. They're winning games. Confidence is high, and the stats point to Grealish at the moment being statistically one of the best players in the Premier League. So I can't understand why you would lock yourself into 3 Aston Villa defenders.
Grealish?
Would I captain Grealish?
Yeah. Is he alongside Salah, Mane, Sterling, Kane? Is he alongside Son?
The stats say he is.
So you would captain him?
The stats say that Grealish is alongside those players. Would I captain him? Probably not, because the reality is
therein lies the answer why he's not a priority to get in. Because I'm prioritising captains. I want players that I would. But
you've got a captain. You've got Kane.
I like to have more captains, though.
But you don't need more captains. All you're doing is creating a captaincy headache for yourself.
I want more captains, though. Why can't I have more? I
want
more players that I would feel happy captainable. I quite like having...
We're talking earlier about balanced teams and about premium assets and stuff, and I just can't see why, when you've got someone screaming at you like Grealish for 7.2 million, why he isn't the priority, because he lets you do so much with the rest of your squad.
To be honest with you, Joe, looking at Aston Villa versus Leeds, in the way that Leeds play with that press and that high line sometimes, without Phillips in that space where Grealish likes to operate, why not captain in this game week?
I'll tell you who I prefer, who I don't own, who's a little bit more, is Rodriguez against Southampton without Richarlison. I quite like. I like that at the moment. But yeah, I don't rule Grealish out. I'm not going to go into like an anti-Grealish thing. It's like, oh yeah, well, I saw him drunk at 4 a.m. during lockdown, so I'm never going to get him. I'm not like anti-Grealish. I'm not Southgate. Yeah, I might get him in at some point.
You're effectively ruling him out of your own team though if you go for Steer, Target, and
Martin yeah, that's the decision I have to make. You see, so yeah, I would have to be anti-Grealish if I did do that move. So that's why I'm starting to think now. The original stats that you were talking about. Now, Burnley, XG conceded 4.52, but they conceded 8 goals, and they're going to have Tarkowski and me back. So they're going to have a more structured team. They're going to be much more defensive. Nick Pope is going to do what he does. So I'm actually thinking Charlie Taylor more at the moment. And then, yes, that gives me the option of Grealish. But yeah, do I want to completely ruin any chance of ever getting Grealish again? And especially when he's got a double game week in 10 game weeks time or whatever. No. So, yeah, you're not going to push me into some anti-Grealish thing. I haven't got like a voodoo doll.
No, you push yourself into it by saying you were going to go three Villa at the back.
Well, no, that's what I said. That's what I said. I said that's the decision I've got to make. That's one of the decisions I've got to make. Do I go down that route towards the end of the week? And yeah, and then that would push myself into that. But do I want to do that? I'm not sure I do really.
Notorious Nerd in the chat says that 6 million Watkins is a decent third striker, and I've done the numbers on him as well, and I agree. But I think the difference between him and with Grealish and with Barkley and with Villa in general is all of his points have come in that one game.
Yeah.
So he's blanked in every other game.
Yeah.
He's blanked
and
in every
also,
other game.
if you look at the stats we got up on the screen as well, the goal attempts there, Grealish 3, okay, but great chance creation. But then Barkley, 8 goal attempts there. And of course, he's set to be possibly as good as Dion Dublin in history, in the history books of Villa. So yeah, I'm not averse to getting Barkley and over Grealish. I'm not interested in McGinn though. I'm not. That's not a thing. That's just not a world I want to go into. I don't want to go McGinn deep into Villa.
McGinn's big thing is corners. He's taken the most corners of the Villa players.
Yeah. Whoop-de-doo.
He'll save you a few quid, won't he, McGinn? I'm with you, but he'll save you a few quid over the other two, won't he? So if you're looking for a budget route in, but I agree with you. I think the others are worth it.
I actually like the idea of doing a Grealish and Barkley double up. I think if you've got Grealish and then you've got maybe, I mean Foden. Foden is a kind of you kind of buy a ticket and stay on the ride. I think if you've got Foden, you just kind of. Yeah, he ticks over and stuff. If you're not happy with that, if you don't want to play who's sometimes going to be bench, sometimes going to be playing DM, sometimes going to be striker, then I think going for a Grealish and Barkley double up could be quite sensible. And the fixtures are really good for Villa. It's kind of
until next wildcard, right? I think until like Christmas, the fixtures are decent.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's really good.
Joe, you can just carry on with Mason Mount, beat Belgium, lose to Denmark.
Yeah.
No, do you know what? Out of principle and out of solidarity with my man Gareth, I'm going to get Mason Mount in. And I'm going to celebrate his every touch.
Do it.
Yeah.
And no matter how massive Grealish's calves are and how brilliant his chance creation stats are, I'm going to ignore them. So when you do, I'm just going to ignore that and I'll go.
But did you see Mason Mount in his 2-minute cameo on
Mason
the left
Mount's
wing?
Absolutely amazing. He's absolutely
beautiful.
incredible player. I mean, his calves are smaller, but his chance creation is still very good. It's almost Grealish level. Let's move on. Let's have a look at the next 4 fixtures. So hopefully I've got a nice picture here of them, so we can see, we can see what we're talking about with Villa's fixtures coming up, and it's worth pointing out as well that we're partnered with Football Index, and so there may also be some players there looking at buying through Football Index. That's a game where you can buy and sell shares in players, use your fancy football knowledge with the aim to make a profit. So yeah, looking at the fixtures here, looking at them, we've got Crystal Palace top. Yeah, guess what? No shots in open play against Brighton. Was it 19 shots Brighton had? So that says something about their goal scoring.
An XG of 0.
And then
awful, wasn't it?
Palace scored 1 goal from a penalty, which is massively dubious, and I say that as a Brighton fan. Anyway, Crystal Palace's fixtures top: Fulham, Wolves, Leeds, Burnley. And then Fulham. Who's going to get a Fulham? I'm going to get Mitrovic in now. Anyway, Fulham are second. Crystal Palace, West Brom, West Ham and Everton. I think you've got to be nuts to start investing in their attacks. But anyway, Everton are next. Southampton, Newcastle, Manchester United, Fulham. Calvert-Lewin, staple in most teams, pairing up with Rodriguez, absolutely great move, I think. Wolves, Newcastle, Crystal Palace at home coming up next, then Leicester, Southampton. That's why I'm keeping Jimenez now. Brighton, not too shabby themselves. West Brom at home, Burnley at home. Small match of Tottenham in between those two matches. Then Villa. And then Villa themselves, I've mentioned Leeds, Southampton, Arsenal and Brighton. And then Tottenham, their run starts coming to an end game week 9, but for the moment they've got Burnley, Brighton and West Brom. These, as you said, I've got a captain, haven't I? Kane, just bung it on him. And then they've got Man City in game week 9. If you're minded to hop on and off, that's the time to hop off perhaps. Chelsea, not too bad either. Manchester United, Burnley, but do we think Burnley are going to get better? I don't know. Sheffield United, Newcastle. And then just moving down, Sheffield United, look at that, Liverpool, Man City, Chelsea, and then West Ham.
It's a horror run,
and as the stats that you pointed out, as about West Ham's attack, that's just the worst set of four fixtures you can possibly imagine. So those with Brewster, well, get praying, because that's an awful run. Man City, West Ham, and why are Man City so low here? Perhaps it's okay. They've got West Ham and Sheffield United. These are good, and then it's got Liverpool and Tottenham. Liverpool haven't got a defence, and Tottenham can't defend. So attack-wise, I dispute those Reds down there for Man City myself. But nevertheless, that's the way it is. And there's some other teams down there. West Ham's fixtures get better in 3 game weeks when they play at Fulham. So yeah, Man City, Liverpool. Arguably Liverpool might be okay for the likes of Antonio there. But yeah, I don't know about you two. When you look at those, any particular trigger any thoughts about future transfers next 4 game weeks?
Being a bit harsh on the Liverpool defence for a start, Joe, but I'll let you off.
They haven't got a defence. We've just been talking about it. They're all gone. They're all in the blooming hospital.
Alisson will be back, folks. Don't worry. Who jumps out for me? I think Everton jump out for me, and I'm kind of interested, having sold Rodriguez in my wild card. I am now a bit concerned that I've done that. I don't regret having Pulisic. I'm quite happy to hold Pulisic through these fixtures for Chelsea, especially if they can find that chemistry and that mix that they looked like they were going to find there against Southampton for a while. But Everton stand out, and James Rodriguez, particularly as the last time Richarlison... when did Richarlison go off injured? Was it game week 3 or game week 4? Was it game week 3, I think? Can't remember who they were playing. They were home to somebody. And anyway, when Richarlison went off injured, James started getting forward more. He's taking more risks and started being the one to support Dominic Calvert-Lewin. So with Richarlison not there, obviously suspended for the next few, I think James Rodriguez owners would be... Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say captaincy, I don't think, but he's going to get some nice points, I think.
Okay, Az, what do you reckon? I mean, you've sort of, I guess because you just wildcarded as well, you've probably got your sort of thoughts in mind for any future transfers.
Yeah, I mean, you look, it's interesting. This was my target week to wildcard, I think, because we started to see a couple of shifts in fixtures. So obviously City with West Ham United and Sheffield United are quite nice. Liverpool now with Sheffield United and West Ham, well, the same 2 fixtures, ironically, for Liverpool and City, just done a different way. Both Liverpools are at home, both for City. That's weird, isn't it? Both Liverpools next to are the same as City's, but Liverpool's are at home and City's are away. How odd. Anyway, and United as well. So, people with one of the reasons why I decided not to go with Fernandes in the end was because of this run. So Chelsea, Arsenal, and then Everton away is a tough game. They have tough 3 games for them. When you've got the likes of Spurs with Burnley, Brighton, West Brom, you've got Wolves with Newcastle, Palace, even though Wolves aren't really impressing me too much. But yeah, I think the 3 that really stand out there are the Spurs fixtures.
Yeah.
I know Son and Kane is attractive. I think mostly because of that. I think after that, it'd be interesting to know if people stick with that quite expensive double up or whether they move them on.
I wonder who they're going to get rid of as well. Trying to predict it. So if Kane keeps up what he's doing, but then there's a temptation move to Aguero. But Son's sort of in a world of his own with pricing, and it's hard. Yeah, it's hard to move off.
I mean, by then we might know kind of how Bale's impacting on things as well. Yeah. So, if we start seeing the points shared across the 3 of them a bit more, or if Bale does start eating into Son's points and Kane is still the one creating and getting assists and that kind of thing, at least we'll have a bit more knowledge on that. But I'd be surprised if people carried on the double up after that, I think, because then we're going to see some new options emerging, and then United are straight in West Brom away when that comes in. So if United do look better, then it could be a Son to Fernandes move. Could be on the cards for
tempting, won't it? Yeah.
for quite a few people. So yeah, I think it's really interesting. I think the fixtures at the moment are they fluctuated now, and then they're going to fluctuate again in a few weeks. I think you kind of have to be patient, getting the players you want for like a couple of weeks' time, and be patient with them, and then reevaluate again, sort of at game week 9.
Okay, what we're going to do is come to Lee's differential in a sec, but I just want to say that with Football Index, you can sign up to that today. Take advantage. They've got 7-day, 500 money back guarantee, £500 there. There's a link in the description below to sign up, as well as a link to check out the full terms and conditions. Reminder, this is for 18 plus only. Please gamble responsibly. You can check out begambleaware.org, and there's a link for this also in the description. So, yeah, Lee, differential time. Ali, Jesus, Mahrez, Van Aanholt. There is no end to the players that we can absolutely ruin.
Come on, Lee. Deliver.
Come on, give us a player that's actually going to get on the pitch.
It's obvious, isn't it? It's obvious who this differential is going to be.
Sergio.
It's been rubber stamped by next door. It's been donated by the better half of FPL Family. Gareth Bale at 1.2%.
Oh, I was going to be Aguero. You missed the chance for Aguero. Wow.
Got to be Gareth Bale. Just nostalgia and everything, and the way that Spurs are playing. He should have scored at the weekend as well. How he's missed that one. He's a little bit rusty, but if he scores that, it's 4-2. He's a hero. He's the most transferred in this week. Gareth Bale, especially those next 3 fixtures, we've just discussed them. I mean, they're absolutely sensational. And even against Man City and then Chelsea, it starts getting a bit more difficult. But I only need him for the next 4 game weeks, don't I? So I think the first 3, Gareth Bale, absolutely.
You reckon he starts next game straight in?
I do. Yes,
Yeah,
I do. I think he's had a bit of a taste of it now. Mourinho's seat shown that he can put a bit of faith in him. So yeah, I think he'll start.
I think judging by our track record, that's the end of Bale's career. Sadly, you've just heralded that.
Cue injury.
Basically, just ruined his legs forever. I think obviously it's it's one of those classic moments, isn't it, where you go, what? 1.1% owned, and it's Gareth Bale. Yeah, Spurs great fixtures. Depending on what you've got though, those like Az have got Son. Those like you've got both Son and Kane, and I've got Kane. I'm not interested, just because I want to get other players, but I could be. But yeah, either of you.
I wasn't picking him in the context of a team. I was picking him in the context of. I just.
Wondered. Battle. I wondered if those you could to get Bale, Son, and Kane, that triple up in attack.
That is bold.
That's really
a bit
bold.
too much.
But with Burnley, Brighton, and West Brom coming up next, you can hop off any of them.
You're also locking yourself out of Davinson Sanchez, though, so don't do that.
You are locking yourself.
True.
Yeah, that is true, actually.
Do you know Aguero's ownership?
Very low, because he was my next choice. 1
or
2%, right?
3 now.
1.9%.
Yeah, mental, isn't it?
I think if you're looking for a differential, I think Bailey's a great shout, but I think so many people are going to have the Son and Kane double up and be reluctant. But Aguero, cheapest he's ever been in the game as well.
I think Bale is a better shout at the moment, just in terms of everyone's team structures. I think Kane in that price bracket is just the go-to man. I think most people faced with that choice would do that. But one thing I'm considering, when City's fixtures turn, and even though Spurs turn the other way, is having Aguero and Kane up front. Especially if Jesus is out long term, because Aguero will be
pricey.
And Salah and Mane and Werner.
No. But this we go the circle of life. It takes us back to the beginning of the SCOUTCAST and that whole issue of opportunity cost and having to embrace the fear and embrace the fact that we're going to be jettisoning some players. But I just wonder if that is a possible move, Kane and Aguero. Not many people are going to have that, and it could be very, very profitable. But we shall see. Let's move on. We're looking at decisions to make, captains, transfer plans. So I think we've alluded to a lot of them so far. So Lee, we'll get your team up first. So apologies to those listening on the podcast. I didn't mention Lee's team, full team there. So I'll do it now. You've currently got Martinez in goal, Kilman back, get his 12.
Come on, Max.
Kilman getting his 12 points in the 11. Robertson, Lamptey. That is a really good back line though, with Martinez as well. Salah captain, Grealish, the one I'm refusing to get because I hate him, Pulisic, Adson, Calvert-Lewin, Kane as your vice captain, and Mbappe. That's really good. Walker Peters on your bench along with Souček and Dallas. That's really good. I like that.
Do you think Kilman? Do you think Kilman carries on starting?
Well, if he does.
To be honest with you, I put him in my wild card last week simply because I was going like Mitchell Ferguson, Kilman, and so I just went kind of Kilman, and then he was fantastic last night, and I also want to give a shout out to Connor Cody because for the best post match interview.
I enjoyed that.
Carragher, that was so good, and he was really bigging him up, Cody, saying he's been at the club a long time, but he's settled in now. He adds balance, I think he said, to that side. And they started talking about his futsal background and how he's comfortable and sort of composed on the ball. So I do think he keeps his spot. And I think home to Newcastle, the way that Wolves are playing right now, I think back to back 1-0 wins, isn't it? So they're not exactly flying forward, but they're being reasonably watertight at the back. Happy to have him.
One thing I quite like about Kilman, and even if you've got Mitchell as well, is it's something I remember Neil speaking about on one of the Scoutcasts about just getting your bench as cheap as possible. And in my awful start to the season so far, one thing that has actually pleased me is I haven't had those horrible bench points. Like a 12-pointer on my bench. I just haven't had any of that. I think I've had like one clean sheet or something. But mostly it's like 0s, 1s and 2s. And that's what I want. I want my bench to be, to come on, maybe get a point or two. But basically, I want to be rubbish.
I thought you were of the opinion that you didn't mind having bench points on your bench.
Well, that's the thing. Another thing, I'm adapting and changing. With this season, with so many premium midfielders and attackers, I've got to make sacrifices. I think you have to. And so at the moment, I'm never going to go, so-called Dendonka deep to the third sub. Maybe I will, but I mind less this season. I think I'm adapting a bit. I'm changing.
If you want Salah, Mane, Son, and Kane, you've got to have some
Kane. Got to have Kilman
and Werner.
Got to have some Mitchells in there.
Yeah, you've got to kill the defence.
If you've got Kilman and Mitchell, I think you're in trouble because I can't see either of them keeping their place long term. No. And then you're stuffed.
Well, especially. Let's come to my team.
So the question you asked me was, do I think Kilman will play at the weekend? I think he probably will.
Yeah.
Will he keep his space long term with Marcel back and size maybe shifts? Probably not. But at 4.0, listen, he's a bench fodder third.
Oh, agreed.
Anyway.
Yeah, I agree.
Like,
I think he's got more chance of keeping his place than Mitchell.
Yeah.
I think Mitchell's straight out for Van Aanholt this weekend, and I think Kilman will play. And we've seen it before with like Lundstrom, a player who no one gives any hope to, and then just puts in a couple of good performances and makes the spot their own. So I think Kilman is the best 4 million option by far. I think he's a good shout.
Well, let's come to that segues nicely into my back line. So here's my team. Not as good as yours, Lee. So I've got Martinez, Alexander-Arnold and Robertson, the double pivot of doom. Lamptey, Souček, Barnes, Pulisic, Sterling. And then up front I've got Calvert-Lewin, Kane, captaincy so far, Jimenez, and then on my bench, the much maligned Mitchell. Justin, who's much maligned as well, and Stevens as well, obviously much maligned. So I'm succeeding in that strategy of having a rubbish bench so far, and I'm tempted to make it even more rubbish by having Kilman in as well. If I was to get Salah, I think that would be the main way, Kilman and Salah. So weirdly, my team would start looking a bit more similar to Lee's there. The other option for me is. By the way, with Pulisic to go, as you spoke about being too clever earlier, and I spoke about it last Scoutcast about best to wait a week or so with Pulisic, see how he's fitting in with Chelsea, and then what did I do? Didn't follow that advice at all. I thought, Pulisic 8.3, I'm going to get him in.
It'll come good.
Havertz is one to have. You know it. I know it. We all know it.
Pulisic is the man. It's going to be fine. Don't worry.
Havertz is the one, but Pulisic would make way because. Who's better, Pulisic, Mane or Salah? Well, it's Mane or Salah. Alexander-Arnold will go, and I'm tempted to do...
You're dropping Pulisic after 1 week, really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Because, just looking at the moves, or I could make no hits, just do Sterling to Salah. Bingo, done. But I want to keep Sterling, and I'm willing to take a hit to keep him.
You can't do it if you dump Barnes.
No, Barnes would be someone else. Not sure who. Could be Barkley. Could be Grealish. Who knows? The guy I hate the most, apart from Gareth Southgate. But yeah, so as I can see, I've got a bit of decisions to make. I'm not going to do anything until team news and find out. And I'm still going to wait until the embargo as well. This is a handy tip as well. Wait till the embargo team news. Yeah.
Jimenez to Brewster, Joe, against that awful Liverpool
I'm not doing
defense.
that. I'm not getting rid of Jimenez for these two games. I could do though. I could.
It means Joe be playing one of Brewster, Mitchell, Justin, or Stevens this week.
I do not want.
I need have Kilman.
Yeah. See, the thing is, it's okay. Having a terrible bench is one thing, but having a terrible bench that you have to then play, so it's not even. It's like then it starts creeping in, infecting your starting 11. That's not. So I've got Souček there, who I'm happy to infect my 11 with because. He's such a tease, isn't he? He's the most flirtatious goal hanger I've ever seen. When is that guy going to score? He's in the penalty. He's just basically he's got one of those little camping chairs in the penalty box with a cup of tea and a flask, and he's just sitting there hanging around the goal, just smiling at us, saying, "I'm not going to score today, but
we'll be here in game week 21 going, it's coming. It's coming
anytime. I might get up out of my camping chair and head this ball in, but I might not, And every time he does it, I think, I can't bench him now."
Joe, who would Alexander-Arnold be going for to upgrade Pulisic to Mane?
Probably Charlie Taylor. I wouldn't play Charlie Taylor. I'll play Justin or Mitchell. I'll give Mitchell a go to see if he does start, and then Justin or Charlie Taylor will be the first sub.
Guess you wouldn't be going down to like Kilman or.
I think realistically, Kilman and Mitchell would be. I mean, that sounds like the most awful comedy double act of all time.
I was going to say that's a bit much, but Charlie Taylor's.
Yeah, I think Charlie Taylor's fine.
I think I'd rather have Trent than Pulisic.
Well, I actually quite like to look at Dallas or Ayling as well. So once again, it's going to be horrible. I'm at the mercy of the market. So I'll have to whoever I can afford, I might get for that. I think I've got 4.9 at the moment if I get Mane to spare. So I can afford some price drops and price rises, but not too many. But anyway, enough of me. As you've just wildcarded, you've got Martinez, Alexander-Arnold, Semedo, the what is he? Portuguese, isn't he? The Portuguese Kilman.
He's Portuguese.
Not as good as Kilman, obviously, but Lamptey, Salah, captains, Son, vice captain, Pulisic, Grealish, Werner, Calvert-Lewin, Mbappe, and then on your bench you've got Souček, Ayling, who I'm tempted by, Mitchell, and Fraser Forster for some reason, and why not? Why not indeed? But yeah, looking at that, you're not making any transfers, I guess. That looks fine to me.
Yeah, well, if you like Lee's team, you surely like my team. We've got 8 of the same players.
I love it. It's great team.
You've got Kilman, I've got Semedo, so we're not very far off there. I mean, the main difference between us, Lee, is you've got Kane and I've got Werner. I mean, that is the kind of the main thing that I've got that's different. I mean, I don't have Kane. I'm not intending to get Kane. I don't feel like I'm being stubborn about it. I just feel that I know that Kane is probably going to keep delivering points. That's absolutely fine. I just don't want the Spurs attacking double up. I've got the Chelsea double up, but it's cheaper. And I'm just excited to see what happens with Chelsea now they've got their kind of fully fit team back.
Game week 9-10, Manchester United's fixtures turn a bit, Man City's turn. What's your sort of vague plan so far? Who would make way for an Aguero, a Sterling, a KDB, or a Fernandes?
Well, it's Werner really. I mean, Werner, Pulisic is the one I want long term. I think he will offer the best value and the best points for Chelsea going forward in general. That's what I'm hoping anyway. It does feel like a bit of a punt. I mean, Werner, I'm hoping is going to get penalties off Jorginho if Jorginho doesn't play. It'd be interesting to know what Lampard does with that midfield, whether it's going to be Kante, Havertz and Kovacic, or whether he sticks with Jorginho. He could even play Mount instead of them. I don't know.
Oh, we'll play Mount.
Oh, yeah, he should do. He's better than Grealish. He should do.
You'd think it's going to be Kante, Mount, and Havertz then as those three. I kind of feel like Jorginho is probably maybe the bottom choice or bottom of the pile of those. In which case, I think the penalties will go to Werner. So that would obviously boost his appeal quite a lot. So yeah, we'll see what happens with that. Yeah, I mean, I'm not adverse to waiting a few weeks and seeing what happens with it. And if I feel like I need to move Werner on, then I will. Again, I can't seem to bear to sell him because I bought buy him back on a wild card, which is a bit weird. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see. I mean, in a straight up choice of Werner or Kane, I'd go for Kane.
Okay.
But the difference was that with the extra million that I was able to save, I was able to sort of boost my bench a bit, and getting Semedo rather than Lee having Kilman. So
I missed out on all those points. So
yeah, I was able to do. I mean, in Semedo, I think he did okay. It was interesting because when I saw him the game before last, he was like playing as a striker, and I was quite excited for the game yesterday because I thought he's going to get at Leeds when they're sort of pushing the fullbacks up. Actually, he played in a much more kind of reserved role because he was kind of having to defend against them, and he did okay. I mean, he made a couple of mistakes and. He's not the best defender, but he did kind of all right. I think it's going to be completely different against Newcastle and Palace. I think he's going to be bombing. They're going to look to him a lot more in those two games to bomb forward. So yeah, I'm quite confident that he's going to get some attacking returns in the next two. So I'm quite happy to have that.
Okay, so you've got 2 transfers for the following game week, probably.
Yeah, save my transfer. And then, again, another reason why I played the wild card because there's absolutely no way I'll be able to save my transfer if I had my whole team because I'd have Pereira in there. And I'd be looking at getting rid of him. I'd still have Ryan in goal, and I'd be thinking, "Oh, should I move to Martinez?" Like, there was loads of stuff that I would have wanted to do. So, yeah. No,
do you see?
I mean,
this is a question here, just before we go. West Ham's fixtures turn. Lots of cheap assets. Antonio, especially the defenders as well. Are they in the back of your mind as a sort of enablers?
Antonio's coming
whatever
in.
You want. Yeah.
Game week 8. I don't know if he's injured now or what, but if he's fine. Antonio's in because he's just absolutely brilliant. I mean, looking at Creswell's numbers as well.
Yeah.
Masuaku's there as well. It's going to be interesting to see what Ben Rama
last
brings.
Season, I was going to get Cresswell in last season. I don't know if you won that Scoutcast. I was absolutely hammered for it, like in the live chat. People thought I'd gone mad. They thought I was getting a dead cat in my team or something. And I was going, no, Luke Cresswell's he's really good. Aaron Cresswell, sorry, not Luke
What's
Cresswell.
amazing though with Cresswell is he's playing like back 3, isn't he?
Yeah.
Because Masuaku's playing as a wing back, Cresswell's in a back 3, and he's still creating the most chances of all the defenders around. It's absolutely crazy.
He's quite good. So I was, hipster, my love of Cresswell. I wish I'd got him in now. But maybe this season. In fact, I would say highly likely this season I'll get him in. Especially if I don't go for Antonio. Just before we go, just want to mention the members area. So a lot of the stats we've been using, especially those expected goal stats and those defensive stats that Az was talking about around Villa and looking at Burnley as well. But loads of stuff.
My table that I created today.
Oh, have you created a table? So in the
created
members
an Aston
area
Villa table.
Oh,
if you wanted to check that out,
go and check that out. They are
Mr. Villa.
Yeah, Mr. Villa there. So yeah, you're the Jack Grealish. Yay! you can have a drink with him at 4 a.m.
Oh, I'd love to.
But enough from us. Thanks so much for bearing with us while we try and make sense of. I try and make sense of the moves I'm going to make. You two seem pretty happy. But for now, it's goodbye from me.
Good night, guys.
Goodbye from me.
Goodbye all.